And I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Thoresson. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me begin by expressing my deepest condolences to the families and friends of all those who have perished in the Ebola epidemic. Would like to commend the government of Liberia and all Liberians for their resilience and determination, and I pay tribute to the many brave healthcare workers engaged in the medical response. Let me also express appreciation for the support provided by the UN and other international partners. While there seem to be some encouraging signs, it is far too early for the international community to lower its guard. Continued attention and massive efforts are still needed. Mr. President, on November 3rd, the PBC configurations of Guinea, Sierra Leone and Liberia held a second joint meeting on the Ebola crisis. The joint format of these meetings underlines the importance of the regional dimension to the crisis and the need for continued close regional cooperation. Lessons should be drawn from the regional approach in the international response to Ebola for enhanced regional coordination also in our support to peace building. At our joint meeting on November 3rd, we identified 3 areas of priority for the PBC. The first is delivering on commitments. We should strongly advocate that the generous commitments and pledges made for the global Ebola response are urgently being translated into action on the ground, and that strong international presence remains to facilitate effective delivery of support. Secondly, addressing immediate peace-building needs. A comprehensive approach meeting the broader security, developmental and governance challenges, along with a medical public health response, is critical. One example, as highlighted already in my statement to the Council in September, is the time-critical needs to address the capability and mobility gaps of the Liberian National Police. Efforts to ensure the rule of law and the protection of civilians, as well as confidence-building measures to prevent further social unrest, should also be encouraged and supported. And third, preparing for the medium term. We must now begin planning for enhanced and accelerated peace-building support in the immediate aftermath of the crisis, not least considering the severe impact the epidemic has had on the economy, which have consequences on Liberia's ability to implement its commitments. The PBC will therefore request the Secretary General to make a comprehensive assessment of Ebola's impact on peace-building priorities, including with recommendations for focused and effective international support. Mr. President, considering the importance of the economic dimension to this crisis, we had invited senior representatives from the World Bank to our meeting last week to provide us with an assessment of the economic impact. According to the World Bank, the two-year regional financial impact could reach $32.6 billion by the end of 2015. The World Bank also indicated that Liberia's revised 2014-15 budget has an unmet financing gap of more than half of the budget deficit, projected at over $300 million. A recent UNDP assessment points to the negative impact on domestic revenue generation and increased pressures on state expenditures. As Her Excellency, the Permanent Representative of Liberia, Ambassador Kamara, stated at our meeting last week, tensions will be rising and public confidence will be eroding as the gap between expectations of the people and the capacity of government to deliver grow wider. The social cohesion in Liberian society is being tested by this crisis, with increasing risks for disorder and political instability. As partners, we should help counter these risks, including by supporting efforts to improve state-society relations. Full transparency in the implementation of our support will be one important factor to help restore public confidence. Mr. President, as we have stated before, it is the Ebola virus that should be isolated, not the countries affected. Strengthening international and regional cooperation will continue to be vital to ease the burden of the crisis. We must help create the necessary conditions and advocate for businesses to return to Liberia. Suspended flights to Liberia should resume to facilitate this cooperation. Due to the increasing risks for instability and the continued need for effective delivery of support, there is great need to maintain strong international presence in Liberia. The decision to extend UNMIL's mandate will therefore be welcomed. We must also ensure that no gaps are left when the drawdown of the mission eventually resumes, not least in view of the upcoming presidential and parliamentary elections. A new approach to international development cooperation may be needed to ensure that support is effective and contributing to sustainable results. Mr. President, the PBC will continue to apply available peacebuilding instruments flexibly, adapting to evolving needs. The statement of mutual commitments, with targets on strengthening the rule of law, supporting security sector reform, and promoting national reconciliation, will have to be reviewed and updated. The PBF-supported projects currently being implemented in Liberia should also be calibrated and tailored to meet the needs of the current situation. The requested assessment from the Secretary-General on the impact of Ebola on peacebuilding will in this regard be a critical input to our continued efforts. I thank you, Mr. President.
Thank His Excellency Mr. Thoresson for his briefing.